If we could
So,
maybe.
I sort of because I've never done this before, so I don't really know like what information people are looking for. But I thought, like I'd break it down to kind of three different categories that I think mini homes fall into, because as you go through different types of purchases, there's kind of like different conditions and different things that you have to think about. And so one of them would be like a mini home sale in a park. Um, and it could be a new home or it could be a resale. And then secondary to that is a mini home on land. And depending on the foundation, gets treated a little bit differently as well. And then uh, again, just on private land, but with a different foundation. Make sense? So, the mini home in a park, if you're looking at new construction, which they're lucky for us. I don't know if you guys know, but we actually have Castle Grove Estates that's starting. I'm trying to have it live for Friday. So that's super exciting. It's 525 new mini homes in Castle Grove, which is in Elmsdale. Other than that, like I think by March this year, Timber Trails, February or March, I think Timber Trails was 100% sold out. And there really isn't any other new parks happening. So if anyone wasn't involved with Timber Trails, next opportunity is going to be Elmsdale. But basically, with ordering a new house, you go through the ordering process. Sometimes the park owners already have them there, like pre-owned. But when you're going through the purchase and sale agreement, you're going to have like the mini home form, which is number 406 with your purchase and sale agreement. And it just sort of itemizes a little bit more details of conditions, what the park requirements are. And also because these homes are manufactured by lots of different, manufacturers out there and get shipped to the site. So typically underneath the sink, there's like a big sticker. So it has a serial number attached, and that's sort of like the ID to the home. So that other form 406 is really important because it itemizes all that stuff and helps you sort of get through the process. Make sense? So Jen, the one that you're doing right now, where is it located?
So it's located in Lake Echo on Dock Avenue. And
Okay.
I learned really quickly some really great tips as well. Phyllis had done a mastermind as well, just so everybody kind of knows. But that was a while ago.
Yeah.
But I realized that, there's such a shortage, again, of products, but there's a ton of buyers. And it was just interesting to learn about that park's process, because they have a
Yeah.
process too of they need to inspect the home
Yep.
first, and kind of key things like that I wouldn't have known. What
Yeah.
kind of things can you add regarding the process? Say somebody has a buyer or someone's doing a
Yeah.
listing. What are some things that are key different
Like
dealing
I
with
think
them?
I wasn't in Phyllis's last class, but I know she's got a ton of experience with mini homes. And I think most of the parks are fairly similar. And I think also too, like the listing agents, some of them, are really fantastic. And then other ones sort of like leave you to your own, I don't want to say demise, but like they're not, it just depends even too on the listing agent I have experienced. So yeah, like when it's a new house, totally different process because it's new. So sometimes people tend even not to do inspections, which of course we would never recommend, but it does happen because they get inspected all the way through in the building process. If it's an existing house, like the park, basically they have to go through their whole system of checking the house, the exterior, making sure it meets all of their community or park regulations. Also, sometimes a lot of people don't realize that if that person is behind in their rent, it can't even transfer hands. Like there's lots of little things in the background. I don't know if any of you have ever dealt with Glenda White, but she's like, her first year in real estate, which was probably 15 or 16 years ago, she I think she sold 48 mini homes. I'm pretty sure that's the number she told me in her very first year of real estate. So she very quickly became, the go-to person. And you will notice that in a lot of the communities, she's a listing agent. Sorry, my dog. What are you eating? Come. Let me see. What do you got? I'm in a construction office right now, and my dog Bobby is with me, and he's just helped himself to a piece of plastic. So yeah, so Glenda White she's really good. Sorry guys. Give me that. Let go. Oh God.
There's been some interesting things that I've run across. Again, pretty darn new agent here. And I've run into a couple mobile home situations. So the first one that I worked on seemed really great. Like there was a lot of amazing information in the docs in Paragon. The park rules were there. The application for the buyer was there. Everything was there. Now I'm working on one for another client, and they didn't have anything. They didn't have the serial number, model number, make, year, nothing. They don't even know who park management is. They didn't include any of the rules. I asked the listing agent, I said, so where are the park rules? And he's like, oh, great question. 17 hours later, I've heard nothing.
And that's, it's frustrating on our end because it is a little bit different. And for people who, haven't really been through the process, you almost don't even know what to ask for because you just don't know. And unfortunately, there are some people out there that get the listing and they think, okay, well, I'll just throw it on MLS, but they actually don't go through the whole process of, explaining to people, how do you get into this community? What does an interview mean? Why do you have to have a criminal record check? Where are the rules and regulations? And what am I expected, to do if I choose to live in this community? What's a land lease? How much is it? Is it going to increase? Like all those things are really important for us when we're representing people to know and understand in different communities. And every community is a little bit different, but for the most part, like land lease payments, that's regulated. So that's regulated by the Nova Scotia Tenancy Act. And even though a park will pick a number and say, okay, land lease in this community is $300 and you pay $50 a month water fee, that's fine. The water fee can increase because there's no regulations on that. The land lease, it can increase, but because it's regulated by the Nova Scotia Tenancy Act, every year they come out with the formula of what the landowners or community owners are, like how much they're allowed to increase the lot rent if they do decide to increase it at all, but it's regulated. So it's based off of like the consumer price index. So it's a formula, it's public, it's posted publicly. So things like that to me, I think are really important because lots of people think, okay, if I go into a park and I'm paying $300 a month for my lot rent, what happens if it goes up to 600? Well, it's not like a condo. Like condo fees can really be all over the place, whereas land lease, it's a tenancy issue, so it's regulated. But to me, that's a really important factor.
Well, Melanie, on to that. So when I'm talking to a buyer and I look at the listing cut and it has that fee, so in this case for this client, it's $350.
Yeah.
Is there an assumption that it is not inclusive of the water fee, or is there an assumption that it is inclusive of the water fee?
All communities are different, so you have to ask that question.
And without the rules and regulations of the park.
Yeah.
Wow. Fun. Okay.
Yeah.
So Melanie, wouldn't Sherry look to speak to the park manager, who that would be, and they would have all that information. And I think that there's a process, is there not, for somebody that is looking to purchase. You have to keep that in mind, that they have to go
an application
process and then also onto the regular. So maybe if we can speak to a couple of those things to keep in mind, timeframes and kind of where to get this information from if in fact the agent doesn't supply it.
Yeah. And that's the tough part about our job, right? Like, who do we talk to first? Of course, the agent is going to be that go-to person, because really, if they're taking on the responsibility of listing something, they should have all the answers to these questions and know what they're selling. it's just been in my experience, it's not always the case. So if I'd say try the agent first and be diligent about that. And then if you don't make any headway, you could reach out to the park manager for sure. But end of the day, you're going to still be dealing with that agent.
Now, the challenge for me is because everything is moving so quickly, things are selling so fast.
Yeah.
Those periods of time are so short. So for example, I had to have an offer in by 10 a.m. this morning. My client got to see the property last night at 6 p.m. By the time they made the decision to do something with it, we had all the docs put together for it. I reached out to the agent and said, park management, where are the rules, where are the whatever? Nothing. We had to have an offer in. So we put the offer in with like clause after clause after clause, like.
Yeah, that's what you have to do, because ideally, you know, they should have all that information ready for you. But if they don't, then you just have to write it in as a clause and pending review of all your documents and rules and regulations, right?
So I have a question about that, because I was just I just put in an offer as well, Sherry, just like you. Hi, by the way.
Hi.
Ryan. So good to see you.
So we put in an offer, but there's a mini clause, there's a mini home schedule as well that kind of covers that.
Yeah.
About the park rules as well. So I attached that as well. But my client asked me, do we pay property tax in a park? And I had to think about that. And I'm a relatively new agent, and I haven't been asked that before. This is the first time I've been dealing with a mini home.
Right.
And I had to think about it. And I came up with two arguments for both sides, but I'm hoping you can answer that question for me.
I can answer that for you. So technically, when you purchase a home and have it placed in a park, or buying one that's already in a park, you don't pay property tax. But the municipality gets us every direction, right? So you live in a community, you don't own the land. So the owner of the land, which is the owner of the community, actually also gets taxed. So they pay tax on the land, but that person that you're getting into a home, the municipality will send them a tax bill. And I describe it to my clients as like a structure tax, because it's significantly less than what normal taxes would be if they own the land. But they still need to, pay taxes, because there's still schools, there's still roads, there's still municipal, services, and fire and all that kind of stuff, ambulance. You little shit. Swear to God, I don't know where, as soon as I get busy doing something, he's like a little kid. You get like honestly, where does he get this piece of plastic from? Anyhow, so does that answer your question? It's usually a percentage of the purchase price.
So yeah, that was gonna be my next question. So how does that structure tax compare to property tax usually?
Well, it's usually significantly less. Like, I can tell you the tax bills that I've seen in Foxwood Village, which is not mini homes, but they're modular homes. They're still chattel product. From what I've seen, it's about 1% of the purchase price. Now, we have no control over that. Owners of communities don't have control over that. That's completely a provincial, and then trickles down to municipalities, right? So they're the ones coming up with that number, but that's sort of what I've seen. That's with new homes too. So something that's a little bit older might be less, but who knows how they really come to those numbers. Every time, just like in a regular house, when you have, like, a couple of years ago, we'd have a house that sells for 400. Now it's selling for 6. Well, what's happening with those taxes? So when you get reassessed, I always just tell people, no matter what, just fight your reassessment, right? You only have a couple weeks to do it, but just do it anyways, because maybe you might get somewhere. Same thing with this. They're going to get a tax bill. It's going to be a smaller percentage of what anybody else would be paying in that area, because they're not paying on the land.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in terms of other things to watch for in mobile parks, so you've gone through a nice list of things here. Is there anything else that should stand out to us as agents that we should be watching for? I know that park rules and regulations, there's certain things that the park requires that a seller does to get the exterior of that property up to snuff before they're allowed to sell. And at times the seller will defer that to the potential buyer. Is there anything above and beyond park rules application?
Well, they shouldn't be referring it to the buyer, because
And yet I've
when
seen it.
I know, but it's really, and I would go back to the park on that one because they have to approve that house or that structure. They have to approve it and say, yes, it's in our standards of what we expect in this community. It's totally held up and now it can be passed to the next owner. I don't know. Can you give me an example of what didn't happen?
The grass wasn't mowed on the outside, so it had gotten kind of wheat field looking and wasn't managed. And there was something to do with the deck.
Mm.
There was something to do with the deck. There were two things. And it was the first time I had seen a buyer having to write in, you know, the clauses relating to an immobile. Yeah, it was the oddest thing because I had conversations with Phyllis about this and she was like, nope, these are obligations to the seller. They have to take care of this. So to see a listing agent put that out that way.
Yeah. And so a lot of times too, like most communities will say in their rules and regulations that, you know, yes, you have to upkeep your lawn to a certain point. Some of them are very detailed. And then they say if you don't do it by a certain date, or if you have like a warning or warning number 2, then at that point, the park will actually hire somebody to come cut it for them and the person gets charged back. I don't know, something to think about because I'd be digging more into those rules and regulations because that's not normal. Like usually you have to have everything perfect so that the manager of the park signs off so that the sale can continue.
Exactly. Okay. And that was my I guess expectation as well.
Yeah.
That's the normal way of things. And in the same situation, the listing agent didn't provide make, model, serial number, nothing. Like,
yeah, it's so crazy to me, right?
Dodgy.
That's what you're selling. How do you list something without listing the proper information for the transaction? It's
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to add to that, in order for it to go for a mortgage, they need that information.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And
they have to
so-
have that info.
And that's the other thing that I was going to bring up when outside of a park, like we know that mobile homes in parks are a chattel mortgage. So it's a different type of financing, right? And so when you put, if you were lucky enough to find a piece of land that you're selling to someone and they want to put a mini home on it and it's zoned correctly, because that's the other challenge that we always have. We can never find enough pieces of property zoned properly to put a mini home on. But let's say you did, and let's say your client then decided that they were going to put the mini home there and have like a full foundation and maybe do a basement and whatever. So because of the way that home is then built and tied down into that foundation wall, it becomes, it's not a chattel anymore. You can actually do a regular mortgage on it.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so then if they bought that piece of land and they said, okay, we're trying to save as much money as we can. We're not going to do a full foundation with a basement. We're going to put it on a slab. Then it's a chattel mortgage. Or if they say, okay, we're not doing a slab, we're going to put it on piers and we're just going to skirt it in, still a chattel mortgage. So that's kind of like an important thing to think about when you're trying to help someone, with their own piece of land outside of a park. In parks, they're always chattels because in order to have a land lease community or lot rent or whatever, it's required by CMHC to actually have that home on piers. That's the only way you can actually get a land lease approved. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So what kind of zoning, what kind of zoning do mobile homes
Depends
need?
on where you are. Like, I was looking at one the other day and it was, it had to be an R3 in order to put a mini home there. So most of them depends on where you are. Like if you're way outside of the city, you want to make sure that you're checking the planning and the zoning and actually go into the details of everything that you can put on that particular land.
Okay, and it will specify either yes or no to mobile?
Yes, it will,
Specifically,
it'll
okay.
specifically identify it.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
Just to add to that as well, just a little bit of information. I recently contacted the Truro zoning office because I had a client wanting to buy land in town and wanting to put a mobile home on it. And yes, so just FYI, in the town of Truro, nowhere are you allowed to put a mini home inside the town of Truro.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I am a huge advocate of those types of laws changing. And certainly, we could fight all day long for our people and try to rezone land. It's not a fun thing. It takes forever. It's almost impossible. But honestly, I think that times are changing and we don't have enough affordable housing, and there's just not a lot of options out there for people. So I feel like if more of us were, on that fighting end, we might make a difference. And like, for instance, Castle Grove, that took 10 years to actually get approved. 10 years. And it's crazy. I feel like it is going to make a difference because that's a fair number of homes. It's 525. And basically everything's going to be under 300. And what the municipality is labeling affordable housing, I think it's like anything under 319 or 311 or something like that. Let's just round it up to 320, for instance. But really, what else is out there for under 320? Like it's almost impossible to find something. So yeah, I know what you're saying about Truro. It's not just Truro, it's everywhere because, I always tell people too, like, I think like the Trailer Park Boys was one of the best things that ever happened in Nova Scotia and probably one of the worst at the same time because, it just created this crazy stigma and people can't get their mindset out of that. I think it's slowly changing. And hopefully with this new development, it's going to really change because it's going to be a little bit of a higher end community. And even though in still really good price points, but it's brand new and it's just hugely needed by all ages. It's not even like there's no, the demographics. It's great for first time home buyers. It's great for people who are, empty nesters or people who are getting ready to retire, or even people who are aging. It's perfect for everybody. Fits the price point, fits square footage, and location is a great key too.
Melanie, sorry, I missed the first couple of minutes. Do you know what your land lease is going to be yet?
It's going to be $345.
Okay. And is that plus water or?
Plus water. There's a $10 water fee.
Okay.
And so the website is done. I'm just working on the last few documents and Anne is just going through my final approvals, but I'm hoping to have everything, at least the first 10 houses listed by Friday.
And how long do you expect them to last?
Well, it's exciting and nerve-wracking all at the same time. But what I've been doing is I've been pre-ordering houses. So we're using Prestige for this community.
Mhm.
And I started ordering homes in March because there are honestly every single manufactured home company, they're booking a year out.
Yeah.
So, it was assertive, on our end, but I feel like it's going to be really beneficial. So the first 10 houses are arriving in December.
Wow.
We're still building roads. And then I have like every month after that, 5 to 8 houses coming.
Nice. You said that's in Elmsdale?
Yeah, it is. It's technically HRM, the way the border is.
Yeah.
I say Elmsdale, but it's
It's
HRM.
Enfield though, isn't it? It's in
No.
Enfield.
It's not Enfield. It's like, do you know where the old Truro Road is?
Yep.
So if you follow the old Truro Road towards Hiscott Street, like it then sort of turns onto Hiscott.
Yep.
So right there at that turn, you go across the water. So we have a temporary bridge there and into the woods, probably 600-700 feet. And that's where the community then starts. The turn starts in there. So it's very private, lots of trees. It's just beautiful.
Oh, so you're accessing it up from Hescott.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought you were accessing at the other end.
No, well, no, we're not. They tell us, you know, where the access can be. And this is what they said was the best thing for traffic. And it's
Okay.
interesting because like if you stand at the big stop and look across the street into the woods, that's basically where it is. There's like a
Yeah.
couple thousand acres there. So
Yeah.
and so we have some of the trucks and stuff go in from that side right now because they're sort of working their way in together. I was coming out of there the other day and it's true, like the traffic, it's pretty busy. So I'm kind of glad that the access isn't coming from that side because there's already so much traffic there. So
Yeah.
it's going to be in a good spot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that is still HRM.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
So we have like 2,200 acres, chopped it in half for the development agreement. So Castle Grove development agreement for that's on 1,100 acres, but we're doing like an eco-friendly condensed development, which is ideal. So the community will be built on between 74 and 80 acres of land. And then everything else is being left untouched, like all the trees, the trails, of course, the water, don't touch that, but it's surrounded by beautiful brooks and it's a lovely area. It'll be good.
Hi, Melanie. It's Carol, Dill, Cassie's mom.
Hi.
I'm on Cassie's, we're just together here. So Cassie and I live out this way and we're aware of everything going on there. I missed the beginning of the meeting here as well. What did you say the price points for those were going to be?
Well, I think based on experience, I think the average person will probably spend between $280 and $300. The starting price point will be around $255, but just based off of Foxwood and experience there, people don't mind spending a little bit more. You're still under that affordability umbrella. And so you have the opportunity to upgrade finishes and, you know, do larger windows or darker siding, like lots of different things like that. You can control your price point a little bit. So starting at $255, that's the smallest unit you can get to go in there. But I think most people will be a little bit higher than that.
Okay, that's great. Great to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So
Do you have show homes available there at that location? Or
yeah,
how's
we're
that
going
looking?
to. The first houses are coming in December. So we have 10 houses arriving. The plans and so those 10 I'm going to list 9 of them, hopefully by Friday. So there'll be 4 metros, 2 Dundees and 3 plans called the, Orchard, which you will not find on the Prestige site yet. It's a special plan done up just for us. And the price points range for those particular 9. I think they're between to I think 87 and 300 basically. But people can, you know, like one metro I'm going to have as a sales center that will keep forever until we're finished. But if you do have clients that want to pick out their own floor plans and all their own finishes, then that's totally a possibility as well. It just means a longer lead time. So because we've been pre-ordering houses and planning for them to sell fairly quickly, because we all know that half the problem with sellers, everyone's excited to sell their house because of the market the way it is, but then they turn into buyers and then it's like a disaster because you can't really find anything. So the idea of having houses already set up and ready for people just to move in as quickly as they want to is sort of the plan.
That's great. And are animals allowed? Because I know
Yeah.
a lot of the rules and regulations, so dogs are allowed.
Yes.
Because that could
And
be a
you know,
deal
that's
breaker. That
more
was
of like a
something.
personal
Yeah.
driving factor from me because
Okay, right.
I think like, there's some parks that you are not allowed to have dogs, or if you do have a dog, it can't be a certain breed, or it has to be a certain weight. I personally think that I don't like, my dog is like, he's the sweetest thing ever. Doesn't even know how to be aggressive, but he's 70 pounds, he's 70 pounds of love. And nowadays, I don't know, like pets are our lives, right? Like people have even stopped having kids and started bringing pets into their life. So I don't know, we're going to be a pet friendly community. And we're also doing like, we'll probably wait to see what kind of demographics, because that's kind of like, it's an interesting thing. We can try to anticipate what it's going to be like, but you never really know. So if there are a lot of kids are moving into the community, then we'll do like a playground. But if there's not a lot of kids and it's more, retirees or whatever, with pets, then we'll probably do a dog park. Like, so we're going to wait to see sort of what the community will be asking for. And I can tell you an interesting statistic from Foxwood Village. So we had 57 houses in there. It's a land lease community in Hubli. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. Those houses came from Kent. They're modular homes. So they're actually, instead of a single box, they're a double box put together, still one level plans. In the beginning, we were thinking it was going to be all sort of like people over 60, and it didn't turn out that way at all. The average age up there is closer to 50 to 55. But the interesting point is it's 40% single women, which is like, it's like a statistic that we never would have anticipated. But if you think about it, it totally makes sense. Like, there's one couple in there that I sold their home in White Hills and they were getting a divorce, and then they both bought into Foxwood. Because for one, it's brand new. You feel great about something that's brand new because, you don't have to worry about fixing windows or putting a new roof on. The price point's ideal. You're staying in a community where you want to be. And so the single female thing, it was definitely a surprise to us, but I don't know, kind of nice too at the same time. Like, I think to myself, if I was at that stage of my life and getting a divorce and needed like a little bit of stress-free living, I would pick a house like this, a mini home or a modular home, before going into a condo. I just would. I'd want to have like my own backyard and a deck to sit on, So
I mean, how many times do we hear, we love to sell our house, but we don't know where to go?
yeah,
Well, I know where you can
it's
go.
a big problem.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions at all? Would it be helpful for me to type up, because I do sort of have like a list of mental things to think about for other communities and parks, like sort of like a hit list, like a to-do list for buyers?
Yes, please.
Would that be helpful? Okay.
So helpful.
Okay.
Quick question, Melanie.
Yeah.
So in your park rules and regulations, will you have that it has to be owner occupied, or will there be options for rental properties within there as well? Because I know that can change some of the demographics.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that yet, because we're not 100% finished. I know we're down to the crunch, but in the past, we have in Foxwood, we do have an option there for it to be rentals. Out of the entire community, there is one house that's a rental, and the owner owns 2 homes in the community. So she just lives a few doors down. And we have not had any issues whatsoever. Like, they've just been lovely, and they rent out for really high price points. So I think that has a lot to do with the neighborhood as well, and the lack of housing. But I will let you know as soon as that decision is made.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I know somebody that would be interested in it from a living personally, like ownership point of view, but then someone else that I'm thinking, okay, they're looking for an investment property, and this is the price point for an investment property if you can get the right Right.
And that's the key, is getting the right person, because, you
Mhm.
know, the last thing you want to do in a community like that, where everybody's living in very close proximity,
Yep.
is have, you know, some investor from out of province buy a bunch of them and then rent them out to students or people that they're not really in full control of. And that becomes problematic for other people who live in the community and the owners as well. So, you know, it's a serious thing to think of. I think most parks won't allow rentals.
Mhm. Yeah.
Can you think of one that does? Because I can't think of
No.
any offhand.
No.
There's one in Middle Sackville, just up past the Kent on the right-hand side, whose name I don't know. Is I know that there's an owner in the park, but he's rented out his mobile home to someone else. So I don't know if it's shady or if he did it legit through the park.
Okay.
He did.
Yeah, interesting.
Who's going to be the property management company that's going to be handling that park? That you're.
It'll probably be in-house.
Okay.
But we're working on finding someone who will live in the community and manage it at the same time. I'd say for the first probably 2 or 3 years, it'll just be in-house. We do have full-time maintenance people and a, you know, office staff and whatever, but you really don't need anybody until you get to a certain point. But the goal would be to have someone living in the community who has purchased a home that, you know, ideally maybe retired and looking for something to do and is handy and whatever.
That's great. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Anything else?
I'm just wondering if there's any additional scenarios that we need to be aware of. And I know there's so much information, but we've discussed mobile homes in parks, mobile homes not in parks, just on land. Is there any other scenario that we need to be aware of that could pop up?
Well, those are kind of your really two options of, I guess you have four. You're a resale in a park or a new home in a park, and then a resale on land or a new home on land. And new home on land, it's all, you know, it's about zoning and what the foundation looks like for financing. And in parks, I guess the bottom line is, like, you know, make sure you get all the information as much as you can. And we've all chatted about how, you know, the listings aren't necessarily always very accurate, but to me, the biggest thing is the community rules and regulations. I'd even say, like, have your people drive around. Does everything look like it's kept well? Does it look like it's being managed well? Are people following the rules? Are they, you know, I was talking to one realtor a couple weeks ago, and she was telling me about, she went into this one park, she was going to list a house in there. And there was a lady who decided to grow pot plants on her roof. And it's like one of those things that you're like, oh, geez, you know, like nobody anticipated that. So, you know, pot plants are, you know, they're legal for people to grow now. It's legal for people to use it. But most of the parks now are saying, okay, it's such a strong smell. And again, you live in close proximity. It's like, how do you manage that expectation and without violating someone's rights? You know? So all these little things are sort of cropping up. So I'd say, to me, if I have someone interested in a community, I'm like, go drive around. Do you like what you see? Because that's your first step, right? If you see garbage all around and people not looking after their homes, and then it's probably the management. They're not, you know, enforcing the rules and regulations. And then also the people who are living in there are getting away with it and don't really care. I know when you walk around Foxwood, the people up there it's like a public gardens. Like they're so particular about their yards, which is lovely. We've never once had to say anything to anybody about anything. They look after everything lovely. So I don't know, rules and regulations. Is the park being managed well? and then just the little ins and outs of how do you, go through the entire purchase. What does the inspection look like? Is there water hookups, little fees that, aren't necessarily being talked about? Because at the end of the day, you want to know what your people have to pay for. Even a $500 surprise can really throw people for a loop sometimes. And I think most communities usually charge around $350 or $400 to connect water, but everyone's different.
Quite something. Okay, that's
I
wonderful.
hope this has been helpful.
So helpful. And if you document things, that'll help it stick into my brain.
I will. I'll send that to you. I'll make sure I get it done today, and I'll send it off to Erin and get her to send it out to everyone who joined.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's awesome, Melanie. Thank you so much. It
Yeah,
was
you're very welcome.
Really helpful. I'm really excited about this development too. I think it's
Me
going
too.
to take some pressure off that price point, which does not have enough inventory.
Yeah.
Has enough
And
buyers, but not enough inventory.
When I was up there the other day and just walking to the roads, I was actually with one of the head people from the Manufactured Homes Association. And we were trucking through the woods, but it's a cleared road. And like when I got up to the point of where the entrance to the community is going to be, I just stood there and looked around. I thought, you know what, like this is going to look fantastic because it's super private. Like we're literally driving right into the middle of the woods and you can't even hear the road noise when like you're in between a very busy up and coming area. I think right now they're saying that Elmsdale is one of the fastest growing communities in Canada.
That doesn't surprise me. It's crazy. Carol, you know what it's like out there trying to get a spot.
Yeah, it is. It's been like that. I've been in real estate for almost 20 years, and it's been like that for most of that time.
Yeah.
And to try to find a place out here right now is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I have buyers, and I've been working with buyers since last fall and cannot get them into a home. It's great to hear about what's going on here with that development, because there's been a lot of people talking about it, and it's good to know a little more detail about it so I can explain it to them.
Yeah, and
some people are not happy about it in the area, but it's great to hear more details from you about it.
It's been a long time coming. And of course, there's going to be people who aren't happy because that's what happens with new construction. So it doesn't matter where you are, where you're building in the city, anybody who lives in close proximity to it are typically not going to be happy. The whole NIMBY system, not in my backyard, nobody wants that. But eventually things change. And when they see, the quality of it and how it actually benefits a community and how it probably will raise their house price, not decrease it, it's going to bring more value to them, then people stop being as angry. And what's interesting is, I don't know, maybe about 3 months ago, one of the close neighbors to the entrance, who was one of the, people who weren't really 100% on board with it and voiced his opinion strongly. Once it actually got approved and went through, the guys were up there and my hubby's up there and they're working away, and he came over and he's like, you know what? We're so excited that you guys are building here. Like, it was a totally different story. And then he's like, oh, by the way, can I have some of that wood that you're cutting down? Because I have a wood stove and, I'd love to be able to use some of that wood. And Jim's like, yeah, go ahead, no problem. But, people change their mind. And when you see something that's done right and done well and managed well, and you get the right residents in there, it's very positive, and it's going to bring so much money to the community. And there's a lot of people who talk about, because technically it is HRM, but it borders East Hants, that it's going to be a strain on the East Hants municipality. But again, with any type of construction, you're always going to have stuff happening on borders, and there's always cross money. So, you know, even though they're paying taxes into HRM, they're spending their money in Elmsdale. They're supporting the small businesses. They're bringing in the population so more money can be allocated for schools and different things like that. So it's one big circle that keeps everything going. And I don't know, we're excited about it. I think it's going to be great, and great for our office, because what a fantastic, you know, project to have under our belt too.
Mhm. It'll be good for Dutch Settlement School, because that's where they'll all
Yes.
go.
Yeah, they will. Dutch settlement, and then they'll go to Middle Muscatava for high school, middle school, high school.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but no, it's great. No, it'll be great. And yeah, and we've got all these new exits coming in here now, because in Lance, we have a huge development starting here in Lance, and then
Yeah.
Elmsdale. It's just happening everywhere here. And you know, I think it's great.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. And I guess reach out anytime if anyone has any questions, or if I can help with anything at all. I'm around.
Thank you
Thanks so much.
It was great.
Okay.
Good luck.
Bye.
Have a great day, guys.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.